Hello, everyone. We right now are going to focus on how you would build out slash break out slash create the different modules. Now, the terminology can be a little confusing. This again is Dr. Kimberly Green and the one and only amazing Michael Hill. Say hello to the nice people.
Hello, all of you nice people.
And our intrepid guinea pig, Dr. Lynn Larson.
Oink oink. Good morning.
So, everybody, the modules component, I'm going to let Michael take over this because he is far more eloquent with this stuff than I am. I just get in there and start hunting and pecking until I manage to make things happen. Michael is far more mindful. Michael, can you please give a quick explanation of the whole modules concept?
So the modules in Canvas is where the learning actually happens. It's how you present the information to your students and helps them navigate and interpret your design, what you're presenting them with in terms of content, the progression of content, how you're doing any scaffolding within the course, really making sure that the order of progression is clear to the students as they go through the course. And so, as the example shell from Canvas shows, the very first one is let's get started, to tell the students right where you want to get started. Once they've gotten started, though, where do they go from there? And that's what we're going to work on developing today. So let's get to that. So if you're Dr. Larson, it looks like you're already there in modules. So I think the first thing that we want to do is scroll down and let's take a look at what Canvas has already provided us with.
This is what you should see in your shell. We haven't added anything here except for the let's get started that we did at the top in a different video. So all of this that you're seeing right now, these are the things you will see. Let me just add one thing. The only way that this makes sense to me as a very kind of linear person when I'm designing curriculum is I immediately think in weeks. So I chunk out, I think of module, as it says unit 1, I think of it as, okay, that's going to be week 1, then I'm going to have week 2, then I'm going to have week 3, then I go in and fill out the content. So there's different ways of thinking, whether you're doing days, maybe your unit is only lasting 6 days, so your titles would be day 1, and then everything that's going to be focused on in that day is inside that content area, or week 1 and everything is broken out. Whatever makes the most sense to you is fine, but as Michael said, you've got to have this pathway for the students to get into your course and into the content in a meaningful fashion. So I'm sorry to interrupt there. Michael, take it away.
Well, I think that was actually perfect, and something that Dr. K mentioned that I think we should focus in on a little bit more is she mentioned the term chunking. And I think that that's really an important concept as you're thinking about developing your course and thinking about how you want to present each bit of information to the students. Think about chunking as presenting bite-sized, digestible chunks of information, rather than providing a single page that has everything, is very text-heavy, and it takes students a very long time to scroll through. Think about breaking things down into smaller, bite-sized pieces so that they can grasp one discrete concept before they move on to the next one. And chunking things down is really important to the flow of the course. Each week represents a chunk. But then within those weeks, we have smaller, bite-sized pieces of information for students to easily grasp and digest before they move on to the next piece of information. And so be thinking about how you want to have those smaller bites within the bigger chunk of each individual weekly module. So with that, I think, are we ready to start building these modules?
You ready, Dr. Larson? Do it. Here we go.
All right, so let's start by changing the name of module / unit 1, and for this course we're going to call it week 1. So what you want to do is hit that little detail button on the right hand side, those little 3 dots. and then edit. And then we just change that module information there. And in addition to having the week name, I like to put the actual topic title or what's going to be covered in that particular week there, so that it's more meaningful to students when they're actually looking at the module. Now, you'll see here on the module settings page, as Dr. Larson's typing there, you'll see on the module settings page that there are a number of other options, and I'm going to touch on those briefly now, but we're not going to go into them in great detail. The lock and tell option allows you to actually set a time when that module will become available. So if you are setting something where you don't want students to, say, move on to a module until a specific point in time, if you hit the checkbox on that lock until, it'll give you some specific time day options. But we don't need to do that here. We're going to let the students just get right into this first week right away, so you can uncheck that box. Prerequisites are if you want to add some type of prerequisite in the course, say a quiz or completion of a prior module or completion of an activity before the student can access this module. So one of the things that I will sometimes do in online classes is make sure that students have completed an orientation quiz at a community college class that I teach before they move on to the first week, to make sure that, yes, they have read and understood the syllabus, and that also gives me a way to check in an online class whether or not the students have actually attended. So that would be an example of the use of a prerequisite. Perhaps you want to make sure that certain foundational concepts are understood through the use of summative assessment on that particular unit before they're able to move on to the next unit. And then let's take a look at requirements there. And go ahead and press the plus next to requirements, and you'll see that. So requirements allows you to set requirements within the individual module. So prerequisites are the requirements to access the module, and the requirements are the requirements actually in the module we're looking at. And so there are a couple of things that we can force students to do. One of them is to move through the sequence in a specific order. So we talked about the modules being linear before. Every item in the module is going to be in a very straightforward linear format. In sequence, we can make it so that students can't access those modules out of sequence. We can also force completion of specific requirements before the module itself is marked as complete. So if we wanted to make sure that they looked at a page or completed a quiz, that would be where you would make that requirement there. So we're not going to do any requirements for this module at this time, so you can go ahead and press that X on the right-hand side there, Dr. Larson, not the plus but the X over there, and that should get rid of that requirement. There we go. And then click Update Module to get the name changed there. Good, so now we've got a week 1 module. You can edit the titles and some of the content in each one of those items by clicking those 3 dots next to it as well. So if you wanted to, say, edit the title of a specific page, you would click those 3 dots there, and that would allow you to make edits to that content item. If you wanted to edit the actual content of the item, you would click on the item itself, and then you would get the edit options for that item there. So let's move down, and you've got down below this module, you've got the second weekly module. That says Build Your Own Module. Click the plus symbol. So let's edit that one. We're going to call that one Week 2 and give it a title. And then we're going to put some content items in there. Perfect. Update. Excellent. So we have this empty module sitting there, and we want to add some content items. So let's press the plus button on the right-hand side. And this is going to allow us to actually add a content item. And we've got a bunch of different types of content items we can add, and you've got a drop down up on the top for that. Right now it defaulted to assignment, and we don't have many of those in the course. But if you wanted to create an assignment, so that's where a student can submit work, that's the assignment option. A quiz to develop a quiz. File is if you wanted to include, say, a PDF or some type of course content file. Page is an HTML page with content that you create, so you can copy and paste information in or type it out there on the page. Discussion is for discussion boards. Text headers are headers within the individual module. And then external URLs and tools are both either a link to an external website or a link to an external tool there. Let's start by adding a text header. So once you've selected that, you've got the option for the name of the header. And we can organize each module in a couple of different ways. One way that you can do it is by separating out different types of activities. So, say by readings or by different types of course activity. Different subunits or subtopics within the unit can be organized by text headers. Dr. Larson, how do you think you might be interested in organizing your module?
Well, I would want to provide some information about how to do CBM in reading, and then some online resources and online discussion and an assignment.
Okay. So do you think that do you want them to move through that in a specific sequence, or more topical groups?
I think in a specific sequence, because they'll need the prior knowledge to do the next thing.
Okay. So would you typically mix in readings and assignments together, or have all of the readings in the front and then complete the assignments toward the end of the module?
I usually like to organize it with the readings first and then the assignment separate.
Okay. So let's do a header for readings, then we can do a second header for assignments or activities. And these are all the kinds of choices that that you all are out here watching the video are going to want to be making as you move through your module as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and create a second header there, and do one, say, assignments or activities, however you tend to. There we go. And then add items. So notice now we've got two headers. We've got readings and we've got assignments. And then this is where you would begin to put in either links or actual content pages if you wanted to develop those, or articles. And you would do that again by pressing the plus. And let's put a blank page in just to put it in as a placeholder. So instead of text header, let's make that page. And when you select page, also when you select file, you've got a couple of different options. You've got all of the pages that are already in the course, or if you want to create a blank new page, you can select that new page option. So if it's something that's already been developed in the course, if it's a web page that you've used before or that you've already written out, that'll be in that list. Now, before we hit add item, we've got an indentation option there. I like, and this is a personal preference, but I tend to like to indent things. So if we've got a page that's within readings, I like to indent it one level just because it makes it a little bit easier to flow with the eyes. Some people don't like that a whole lot, but that's a design choice that you would get to make. Go ahead and click add item, and you'll see how it's indented there. Notice that it drops it at the very bottom of the modules list. So what we're going to want to do is actually click that item and move it up. Exactly. You're going to grab a hold of the left-hand side and drag it right on up there to reorder it.
This idea of using the indents is, from my perspective as a designer, is so important because it gives you that clean click visual. Dr. Larson, if you would move from dynamic indicators of basic literacy skills way over to the right and click those three buttons again, you'll notice, guys, that you've got the increase and decrease indent here. So don't ever feel like, oh no, I built it this way, I didn't move it into the right space. You can continuously increase, decrease, whatever you need to do. There's always multiple ways to do this stuff. So the way that Michael's walking you through is one way. I tend to throw the kitchen sink in there and then go in and do the increase and the decrease in the indents as I'm moving down, just to first get it down there. And no one way is right and no one way is wrong. So that's why we're doing this as a group, to show you guys the different options and the different ways you can do these things.
Excellent. So what I was going to point out is that, and I think we talked about this in a prior video, but it's worth repeating here, that right at the moment, notice that the Week 2 module and all of the content items have that gray circle with a line through it on the right-hand side. That means that those items are not published. When we want to make that available to students, we'll want to click on that icon and it'll change it into a green check mark. So let's go ahead up to the top. We're going to add a Week 3 module now. So Week 2 was already there and we just edited it. But this time we want to add a new module, and you have to do that from the very tip top. So go ahead and hit that plus module icon. and that's going to create a new module for us. So here's our week 3. Perfect. All right, and let's scroll down to the bottom. So anytime you add something new in Canvas, it always drops at the bottom of whatever list you're working in. So we're going to need to grab hold of that module and move it up above the Canvas guide for instructors there. There we go. And then you will edit and add content in just the same way that we did in the last one. Perfect. All right.
Down here at the bottom where it's the unpublished need help, visit the Canvas guides, right? Can I tell you, just again, from my perspective as a designer, it totally throws me off to see those there. So when I'm designing in Canvas, I move this stuff way up to the top so that as I'm going down and going down and going down and making sure that my course is broken out the way I want it, I don't get tripped up by looking at that. It just, to me, it's clutter. So I move it way up to the top so that as I'm going down, I don't have to look at it anymore. Does that make sense?
You know, I think we talked about the Canvas guides for instructors in an earlier video, and it is accessible by the help icon over on the left-hand side.
Wouldn't hurt my
I think
feelings.
maybe we could just go ahead and delete that. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Let's go ahead and just let's delete a module. So we click the detail, and we went right there to delete, and it is that simple. So go ahead and hit delete there.
Beautiful.
You sure you want to delete? Yep. And there it goes.
So, Dr. Larson, what do you think? Would you be comfortable now breaking out, at the very least, building your scaffold for your week 4 and week 5?
Absolutely. I know how to add all the important elements that I would need for each week and where to find the different things that I would add.
Dr. Larson, can you scroll up for a second, please? When Canvas says modules, modules just means the singular organized chunks in which you have your students going through your course, whether it's weeks, week 1, week 2, week 3, or days, day 1, day 2, day 3, or months, month 1, month 2. You can figure out where we go from there. So those are my parting words. Michael, anything else?
I think that my only parting comment here is don't be afraid to explore. As you're playing with things, as you're building out your course, try new things, explore a little bit. Don't just stick to the script, but not completely to the script. Have a little bit of fun with it, because that's what this design is about. And even though it's an online setting and you're working in an online environment, this is your classroom. And just like in a school setting, you would personalize your classroom and make it an environment for your students. You're doing that with this online shell.